But what about Sybil Edmonds saying she was decoding the FBI/NSA recordings out of the foreign language, out of Arabic, and she's sitting there listening to it, and it is elements of Western intelligence interfacing, and we know that Dr. Zbigniew Brzezinski brags in 2 books he wrote that they got the Arab Legion together out of other Muslim extremist groups and that they were interfacing with it right up until the attacks. That makes perfect sense for you, a separate division, going after them. Once you expose that you guys could have gone after them, but many others have said they were kept from going after them, then that shows clearly that they wanted the attacks to happen to set up a police state in America.
Well, I can't go that far, Alex. I mean, you obviously have an overview different than mine. What I can say are the facts, and this is one of the things I try to be very clear on over the past 6 years, is that there's still a great deal of mystery as to why Able Danger stopped. And I can state that clearly because this was in my testimony, and it's one of those mysteries which I...
Well, let me just say this then. We saw Special Forces colonels and others, your contemporaries, your peers, in the news in 2002 complaining. And I had the author of Jawbreaker on, too, with the CIA saying we weren't allowed to go after anybody real, and every time we caught somebody real, we were told, let them go.
Well, and I understand what you're saying about the Jawbreaker, and I've read the book, and that's what I'm going to tell you here. Regarding Able Danger, there's still a mystery as to why it stopped. The operation planning occurred during the 99-2000 time frame, and as far as we all know, as part of the team, the last tangible, real element of Able Danger occurred in January, February 2001, in which the Able Danger core team briefed General Shelton at the Pentagon about the options. And this is the thing I wanted to emphasize about Able Danger, Alex. It was not about data mining. It was about options to take action against Al-Qaeda. And again, that's what we're going to talk about a little bit more.
You were targeting, you were tracking, you were identifying.
Yes.
And so you had them targeted and identified,
right.
and you weren't green-lighted.
That's correct. That is an accurate statement. Because, as a matter of fact, up till June of 2001, I was getting calls from my colleague, Commander, now Captain Scott Philpott, asking me to reactivate my component, my Stratus Ivy element, to help them continue the targeting process. And frankly, he was getting a great deal of static. I was pulled off. As a matter of fact, I was pretty much fired because I wouldn't back down on the issue. I actually had a confrontation, which you can find on the internet, where I talked to the government security news, where I was interviewed, and I talked about the fact that my boss, Major General Rod Isler, and I had a shouting contest where I basically said, look, we've got to do this because this is a clear target, and I was told it's not your job. I'm the general, you're not, and I'm telling you to stop. So essentially during that time frame from February of 2001 until, the attacks, those of us who were trying to actively work this, because of our, and Alex, you understand this, I mean, I didn't just come off the street and pick up being an intelligence officer overnight. I had quite a bit of experience at the time, and so did the entire team, and we were all saying there's something wrong here. We got to do something because there's indications that these people are not only going to do something, we have cells of Al-Qaeda within the United States. And that
well, let me stop you then before we get into that, Colonel Shaffer, and we really appreciate your time here today.
Yeah.
Separate investigations on separate operations similar to yours, they have spoken out and said the State Department and higher-level CIA killed our operations to decapitate Al-Qaeda. So your take on that? Well,
again, I can only go back to my direct experience. There was an asset who had fabulous access to Al-Qaeda, who was I can't go into a lot of detail. I have to be very careful about this because I talked about this in closed hearings. There was an operative, someone we had recruited, who we had every indication was loyal to us, who had fabulous access to the Al-Qaeda planning elements within Kabul. And frankly, this gets closer to the point of what Able Danger, my part of Able Danger was all about. That was really the focus for me, was Kabul. And what this individual had access to. And one of the things I told the 9/11 Commission was, we don't know why we were told to terminate our access to this individual. This became a huge battle because my then boss, Major General Bob Harding, actually went to the Hill to plead for our ability to continue running that asset because he had fabulous access, and for some reason it was terminated.
Well, sir, why is it the same story?
I did report this to the 9/11 Commission, and as far as I can tell, this was never followed up in any great detail either.
Why is it the same story with Hassan a couple months ago at Fort Hood? For 2 years, he's sending emails. The CIA is capturing it all. Now Congress wants to see that. They've declared national security. We have the underwear bomber 2 weeks ago. He specifically, they want to put him on the watch list. His dad warns he gets through. I mean, this is not just government incompetence. These guys always get through.
No, and that's the funny thing here, Alex. You got to look at this because, again, we had testimony, we had hearings on this in 2002, 2003. Again, when I testified in 2006 about the same core issues, and here we are in 2009, and I find it, and I'll be totally blunt here, I find it insulting that you have the special advisor of the president, Mr. Brennan, saying, we just didn't get our act together. As an American taxpayer, I'm aghast at the money they have spent over the past 6 years trying to fix this. After, I personally put my career on the line to go testify about it, and yet no one seems to take seriously the need to fix the system. And, Alex, it's not about more. It's not at all about more. As a matter of fact, we're going the wrong way. The more bureaucracy you create, the better the chances are you will have an Hassan or an underwear bomber get through security, because you are not layering security, you are bloating security. And this is where, and I know that one of the reasons we're talking is because Mr. Tarpley was saying, I've been out talking about this a little bit, and I think he agrees with me on this point. I'd like to believe so. I am not for more bureaucracy. As a matter of fact, the actual elegance of Able Danger was we avoided the bureaucracy, and that was one of the downfalls of the project, I believe, is because we avoided the powers that be relating to who the pros consider themselves to be regarding Al-Qaeda and all that.
And they didn't want you to upstage them.
No, absolutely, and that was a huge issue. I actually had a confrontation with one of the CIA officers at SOCOM. He was a friend of mine. I had to go in and brief him on Able Danger, and he was being as friendly as he could be when he told me, Tony, I understand what Able Danger is about. I know it's not competing with us, but I can tell you right now, we CIA will never share our best information with you, because if you're successful and we're not, you will upstage us. Therefore, we will not participate. So, again, we recognize... Is
that why the CIA's been using Blackwater instead of the Army?
Well, I actually was on ABC News on Brian Ross's unit on this just recently, where I talked about the fact that this is one of the strange ironies. I was the guy who had to handle the first two Blackwater operatives who were killed in action back in October of 2003. So not only do I have direct knowledge of it, I was the guy that had, when they got killed, I had to do the graves registration stuff. That's the military term for basically coordinating the removal of the bodies from country to leave. So, in my judgment, absolutely. One of the things we recognized early on during the war is CIA really wanted to run its own game. And again, this is going to be something we talk about in the book to a great extent.
So they're setting up their own private army instead of using the Army.
That's correct. That is absolutely correct. And what they were doing is, and this is not new. This is in the public domain. They have their ground operations branch, which actually does their paramilitary operations. And one of the problems after 9/11 is they had a hard time building enough quickly with qualified and cleared officers. So one of the things they did, they took a shortcut and started hiring Blackwater individuals who were, essentially coming out of Army Special Operations, out of Navy Special Operations, and putting them out in the field as CIA operatives. And again, this has been on Brian Ross. You can go to the internet, you can pull up the story where I talk about this on air. And the fact is this: they were taking these contractors and using them essentially, and I'll be blunt, mercenaries. They were using them in a role, not as security guards, but as guys outside the wire trying to train Afghan and Pakistani individuals to be essentially their operatives on the ground to do special operations.
And they've got them in Pakistan right now.
Yes. So that's what we're faced with right now. And frankly, one of the things I said with Brian Ross, and I'll say it again here, is that I think they did a great deal of this to avoid oversight. Because I think, and I've heard this from other folks on the Hill, the staffers, that there's a lot more that's supposed to come out on this. Because frankly, it appears now, and I think that's one of the reasons that Mr. Panetta, the DCI, actually went over and reported this to Congress, because I think when he discovered the fact that Blackwater was being used in operational roles not as just guards. I think that's one of the reasons he made the disclosure to Congress immediately, because that is not within, as I understand it, CIA's purview to use Blackwater as operatives instead of guards. And yeah, that is clearly